I never thought the coldest night of my life would be Christmas Eve, standing on the front porch of the house I still owned, pounding on my own door with snow coming down hard, while my only son screamed through the glass, "You're not welcome here anymore, Dad. Go away." My name is Tom Harrison. I'm 63 years old now, retired from the lumber mill after 41 years, and for most of my life, I only ever wanted one thing: to take care of my family. My wife Linda passed in 2014, God rest her sweet soul, and since then it's just been me and our boy, Ryan. Ryan's 38 now, married to Ashley for the last 12 years, and they've got two little ones I love with everything I have, Emma, who's 10, and little Luke, who just turned 7. People always said I spoiled Ryan. Maybe I did. When Linda got sick, I promised her on her last good day that I'd make sure our son never had to struggle the way we did growing up. After she was gone, I took that promise to heart. Ryan and Ashley bought a nice brick house on Maplewood Lane back in 2015, 4 bedrooms, big backyard, the kind of place Linda and I could only dream about when we were young. The mortgage was more than Ryan's warehouse job and Ashley's part-time nursing could handle, so I started helping. First it was just a few hundred a month. Then it became the whole payment. 8 years, folks. 8 straight years I wrote that check so my grandbabies would always have a roof over their heads. I never asked for a thank you. Seeing those kids open presents under their tree every Christmas, knowing they were safe and warm, that was enough for this old man. Ryan would hug me and say, "Dad, you're the best father-in-law Ashley could ever ask for." And Ashley would kiss my cheek and tell me I was their guardian angel. I believed them. Lord help me, I believed every word. But something started changing a couple years back. Ryan stopped inviting me over as much. Phone calls got shorter. When I dropped by with groceries or to fix a leaky faucet, Ashley would look at me funny, like I was interrupting something. I chalked it up to them being busy with the kids, told myself not to be the clingy old dad. Then last fall, Ryan sat me down in my own kitchen and said they didn't need my help with the mortgage anymore. Said he'd got a big raise, that they were finally standing on their own 2 feet. I was proud, teared up, if I'm honest. I told him I'd keep the money in savings in case the grandkids needed it for college one day. What I didn't know, what I couldn't see coming, was that the house was still in my name. I'd never taken it out. And 3 weeks before Christmas, I got a letter from my bank that stopped my heart cold. If you're watching this tonight, let me know what state you're sitting in right now. Drop it in the comments. And if this old man's story is speaking to you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. It means the world to me. Because what that letter said, well, that's when everything I thought I knew about my son started to crack wide open. And by Christmas Eve, it would shatter completely. I was sitting at my kitchen table, the one Linda and I bought at a yard sale in 1987, still solid as the day we carried it home. The envelope from the bank was sitting there unopened, and I don't know why, but my hands were shaking. Something told me not to open it alone, but there was nobody left to call. Just me and the ticking of that old wall clock. Finally, I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet. A notice that the property taxes on 1427 Maplewood Lane, my son's house, were now 3 years behind. Over $22,000 owed, and the county was starting the foreclosure process in 30 days. My name was on the top of the page as the legal owner. My signature. My responsibility. I sat there staring at those numbers till they blurred. 8 years I'd paid the mortgage, every month like clockwork, sometimes skipping my own blood pressure pills to make sure the check cleared. And in all that time, Ryan never once mentioned property taxes. Not once. I'd always assumed they were rolled into the mortgage payment like most folks do. Turns out they weren't. Turns out my boy had been pocketing that money I'd handed over thinking it was keeping his family safe, while the tax bill sat unpaid. I drove over there that same afternoon. Snow was starting to stick on the roads, and the Christmas lights on their block were already twinkling. Their house looked perfect from the outside. Wreaths on the door, that big blow-up Santa on the lawn I'd bought them 2 years ago. I knocked, and Ashley answered holding little Luke on her hip. She smiled at first, then saw my face, and the smile died. "Tommy, everything okay?" I held up the letter. "We need to talk, honey. All 3 of us." Ryan came out of the den, wiping his hands on a dish towel like he'd been helping with supper. When he saw what I was holding, the color drained right out of him. "Dad, I can explain. $22,000, Ryan. 22,000. Where'd the money go, son? 8 years I've been paying your house note, so my grandbabies wouldn't have to worry, and you couldn't pay the taxes." Ashley put Luke down and sent him to his room. Then she started crying, quiet, guilty tears. Ryan just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Finally he said, real low, we got behind. Then we took a cruise. Then Ashley wanted the new kitchen. It just snowballed, Dad. We were going to catch it up. I swear. A cruise. Granite countertops. While I ate canned soup some months so they could have their dream house. I felt something break inside my chest that day, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not mad, I lied. I'm heartbroken. But I love you. We'll figure it out. I'll take care of the back taxes, same as always. Just no more secrets, okay? This is the last time. They both hugged me, crying, promising it would never happen again. I wrote the check the next morning, took every dime of Linda's life insurance that I'd been saving for my own burial one day. I thought that was the worst of it. I had no idea that 3 weeks later, on the holiest night of the year, my own flesh and blood would look me in the eye and lock the door with me standing on the other side, holding the Christmas ham and presents for my grandbabies in the freezing cold. And that was only the beginning of finding out just how far things had gone wrong. Christmas Eve came in quiet and white, the kind of snow that muffles the whole world and makes you think everything's clean and forgiven. I'd spent 2 days wrapping presents, the kind of silly, extravagant things a grandpa buys when he's trying to make up for missing too many bedtimes. A new bicycle for Emma, a gaming system for Luke, a necklace for Ashley that cost more than I should have spent, and a thick envelope with a cashier's check for Ryan, $10,000, the last of what I had in savings after paying those taxes. I figured we'd put it all behind us. Fresh start. That's what families do. I pulled into their driveway at 4 o'clock, the ham riding shotgun, still warm from the oven, brown sugar glaze bubbling. The porch light was on, the tree glowing through the big front window, just like always. I could see the kids jumping up and down inside, waving at me through the glass. My heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. I climbed the steps slow, bad knee acting up in the cold, and the door opened before I could knock. Emma flung herself at my legs, yelling, "Papa!" and Luke was right behind her. Ashley stood in the hallway smiling, but it was a tight smile, the kind you give when company shows up unexpected. Ryan was nowhere. "Merry Christmas, babies," I said, hugging them kids so hard my eyes watered. "Where's your daddy?" Ashley took the ham from my hands like it weighed 100 pounds. "He's upstairs. He'll be down in a minute." Something in her voice made the little hairs on my neck stand up. I carried the presents inside and set them under the tree. The living room smelled like pine and cinnamon, same as every year, but the air felt wrong, thick. Ryan came down the stairs slow, wearing a new sweater I'd never seen. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Merry Christmas, son," I said, opening my arms. He didn't move toward me, just crossed his arms and said, real flat, "Dad, we need to talk. In private." We went into his office, the little room off the garage I'd helped him finish with my own hands. He closed the door and leaned against it like he was blocking the way out. Then he said the words that still wake me up some nights. "I've talked to a lawyer, Dad. The house is in your name, but Ashley and I have been paying the utilities and upkeep for years. The lawyer says that counts as adverse possession. If you sign the quitclaim deed tonight, we'll let you keep coming around to see the kids. If you don't, we'll file with the court after the holidays, and a judge will make you sign anyway. And then you'll never set foot in this house again." I stood there like he'd hit me with a 2x4. My mouth went dry. "You take the only thing your mother and I ever managed to hold on to from your own father? It's not yours anymore, Dad. You gave it to us. You just never made it official." I looked at him, really looked, and I didn't recognize the man standing there. The boy I'd carried on my shoulders, the one I'd taught to throw a curveball, the one I'd held when his mama died. He was gone. And that's when I heard myself say, calm as you please, "All right, Ryan. I'll sign whatever you want. Just let me say goodnight to my grandbabies first. It is Christmas Eve, after all." He nodded, suspicious, but he opened the door. I walked back into that warm living room, got down on one knee in front of Emma and Luke, and I lied to their little faces with a smile I hope God forgives me for. But what Ryan didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd already been to see my own lawyer the week before. And there were things in that deed, and in my will, that were about to change everything they thought they were taking from me. Because some lines, once a man crosses them, there's no coming back from. And my boy had just stepped clean over the one I never thought he'd find. I hugged Emma and Luke longer than I ever had, breathing in that little kid smell of shampoo and Christmas cookies. Emma whispered, "Papa, are you crying?" And I told her it was just the cold making my eyes water. Luke shoved a handmade card into my hand, a crayon drawing of me, him, and Emma standing in front of this big brick house with a giant heart over it. I slipped it inside my coat pocket right next to my heart, because I knew I might never get another one. Ryan was watching from the hallway, arms folded, foot tapping like he had somewhere better to be on Christmas Eve. Ashley wouldn't even look at me. I stood up slow, knees cracking, and I said loud enough for the whole house to hear, "Well, I best let y'all get on with your evening. I'll just take my ham and go." I picked up the foil pan I'd carried in less than an hour earlier, still warm, and walked myself to the front door. Ryan followed close, like he was afraid I'd steal the silver on my way out. When we were alone in the little foyer, he shoved a folded paper at me, the quitclaim deed, already notarized, just needing my signature. "Merry Christmas, Dad," he muttered. I looked him dead in the eye, took the pen he offered, and for one long second I thought about signing it, just to keep the peace, just to keep seeing those babies. But then I heard Linda's voice in my head, clear as the day she left us. "Tom Harrison, you don't let anybody walk on the love we built, not even our own boy." So I folded that deed real slow, tucked it in my shirt pocket with Luke's drawing, and said, "I'll bring this by after the holidays, son. Gotta have my lawyer look it over first. You understand." His face twisted up angry. "You said you'd sign tonight." "I said I'd sign what's fair," I answered, voice steady as a preacher on Sunday. "Tonight's about Jesus' birthday, not lawyers." I opened the door. The snow was coming down thick now, big fat flakes sticking to my eyelashes. Ryan started to say something else, but I just stepped out onto the porch I'd painted myself 3 summers ago and pulled the door shut behind me. He locked it. I heard the deadbolt turn. Then the porch light went off. I stood there a long minute, him getting cold in my hands, snow piling up on my shoulders, listening to my grandbabies inside asking why Papa left so soon. Ashley told them I wasn't feeling good. Ryan didn't say a word. I walked back to my truck, set the ham on the seat, and sat there till the windows fogged. Then I pulled out my phone and called the one person I swore I'd never drag into this mess. Linda's younger brother, Ray. He's a real estate lawyer down in Tennessee, retired now, but sharp as ever. "Ray," I said when he answered, voice cracking for the first time that night. "Merry Christmas. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need a favor. A big one." I told him everything. Took me 20 minutes. When I finished, there was just silence on the line. Then Ray said real quiet, "Tommy, you start driving. Come to our place tonight. We'll get this fixed. And brother, I'm proud of you for not signing that paper." I turned the truck toward the interstate, tears running hot down my cold cheeks, and I made a promise right there to the good Lord and to Linda both. I was done being the bank that never says no. My boy wanted the house that bad. Fine. But he was about to learn that some gifts come with a price nobody saw coming. And the first part of that price was due the day after Christmas. I drove south through the night with the radio off, just the sound of tires on wet highway and my own breathing. By the time I crossed the Tennessee line, the snow had turned to cold rain, the kind that stings your face when you stop for gas. Ray and his wife Marlene met me at the door at 3 in the morning with coffee and open arms. Marlene took one look at me and started crying. She'd loved Ryan like her own, too. We sat at their kitchen table till sunrise. Ray read every scrap of paper I'd brought. The original deed from 2015, the mortgage statements, the tax notices, the quitclaim Ryan tried to shove at me. He kept shaking his head slow, like a man watching a train wreck he can't stop. "Here's the thing, Tommy," he finally said, pushing his glasses up. "That house is 100% yours. Always has been. But there's something else in the file you probably forgot about." He slid a document across the table. It was the life estate agreement I'd had drawn up the same week Ryan and Ashley closed on the place. I'd been so proud that day, thought I was being smart. It said that as long as I was alive, I had the absolute legal right to live in that house, any room I wanted, without paying a dime or asking permission. It was recorded at the courthouse, plain as day. I'd put it in there because Linda made me promise the kids would never be able to put me in a home if I got sick. I never dreamed I'd needed to keep from being put out in the cold by my own boy. Ray looked me in the eye. "You move back in, Tom. Day after tomorrow. You walk through that front door with your suitcase and this piece of paper, and the law says they can't stop you. Not without a court order that'll take months, maybe years. And by then, he tapped the will I'd rewritten 2 days after the tax scare. By then it won't matter, because everything goes to Emma and Luke in trust. Ryan and Ashley get nothing unless they treat you right. I stared at that paper like it was written in fire. Part of me wanted to tear it up, call Ryan, beg him to let me come back quiet. But then I saw Luke's little crayon drawing in my mind, that big heart over the house, and I heard that deadbolt turn on Christmas Eve. No, I said, voice rough. I'm done begging. Ray nodded once, like he'd known what I'd say. Then we leave the day after tomorrow. I'll ride with you. 2 old bulls are harder to shove around than one. We shook on it. Marlene packed me a care box like I was heading off to war. Fried chicken, cornbread, a thermos of coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe. December 27th, 9 o'clock in the morning, Ray and I pulled into the driveway on Maplewood Lane. Ryan's truck was gone. Ashley's car was in the garage. The Christmas blow-up Santa was already deflated and rolled up by the trash cans, like the holiday never happened. I took my old duffel bag out of the back, the one I'd carried home from basic training in 1981, and I walked up those front steps one more time. This time I had a key, and when Ashley opened the door, eyes wide as saucers, I simply said, "Morning, honey. I'm home." What happened the next 30 days changed every single one of us forever, and taught me the hardest lesson a father can learn. Love sometimes has to put on steel-toed boots before it walks back through the door. I stood in that doorway with my duffel in one hand and Ray right behind me, and for the first time in years, I wasn't asking permission to be in my own house. Ashley's mouth opened and closed a couple times, then she whispered, "Tom, what are you doing?" "I live here, sweetheart," I said, calm as Sunday morning. "Always have. Paperwork says so. I'm moving into the back bedroom, the one with the green wallpaper Linda picked out when we thought we'd retire here someday. I'll stay out of your way, but I'm staying." She started to argue, but Ray handed her the life estate agreement and the certified copy from the courthouse. Her eyes scanned it, and whatever fight she had left just leaked right out of her. She stepped aside. For 31 days I lived in that house like a quiet old ghost. I cooked my own meals, sat on the porch in the evenings, and every afternoon at 3:15 I was waiting when Emma and Luke came off the school bus. I helped with homework, fixed the loose step on the deck, and never once raised my voice, no matter how many dirty looks Ryan shot me across the dinner table. I even kept paying the mortgage, because those babies weren't going to lose their home over grown-up foolishness. Ryan tried everything. He threatened to call the sheriff. The sheriff came, read the papers, tipped his hat, and told Ryan there was nothing he could do. Ryan changed the Wi-Fi password. I sat on the porch and used my phone hotspot. He hid the TV remote. I read books to the kids instead. One night he got drunk and yelled that I was ruining his life. I looked him in the eye and said, "Son, you did that part all by yourself." The real change came slow, like ice melting in March. First it was Emma sneaking into my room at night, because she had nightmares and wanted Dad. Then Luke started asking me to tuck him in again. Ashley began leaving a plate in the warmer when she cooked something I liked. And Ryan stopped looking me in the face for weeks. But one morning I found my laundry folded on my bed, and I knew whose hands had done it. On the 31st day, Ryan knocked on my bedroom door at dawn. He stood there in his work boots, eyes red, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Dad, can we talk?" We sat on the tailgate of my truck like we used to when he was 16. He cried. Big, ugly sobs that shook his whole body. Told me about the gambling websites, the credit cards, how Ashley wanted to keep up with her friends, and he was too proud to say they couldn't afford it. Told me he hated the man he'd become and hated even more that his kids were watching. I let him talk till there was nothing left. Then I said the only thing that mattered. "I'm not here to punish you, Ryan. I'm here to remind you who you are. You want this house. Earn it. Starting today, you make the mortgage payments, the taxes, the insurance, everything. I'll sign it over to you, and Ashley the day the principal balance hits what I've put in, dollar for dollar. Till then, we're family under one roof, and we act like it." He nodded like a little boy again. 6 months later, on a warm Saturday in June, Ryan handed me a cashier's check for every penny I'd ever given them, plus interest. We went down to the title company together. I signed the house over, fair and square. Then I handed him the new deed and a hug that near broke both our backs. These days I live in a little place 10 minutes away, close enough for Sunday dinners and ball games. Ryan and Ashley are careful with money now. real careful. And every Christmas Eve, my key still works on that front door. The porch light stays on, and there's always a plate of brown sugar ham waiting. I learned something a man only learns when he's stared down the worst in the people he loves most. Forgiveness isn't letting somebody off the hook. It's handing them the rope and teaching them to pull themselves back up. And sometimes the strongest thing a father can do is refuse to leave, even when every door slams in his face. If you've ever had to do the hard thing for family, you know exactly what I mean. God bless you, and keep your people close.